Do your best, everyone. Oh, I just need a minute. What do me to rush?
Our fleet is in position. I'll guide us to our designated spot. Please gather behind my shield. Toxic Fins, be glad you're only facing the Sea Patrol, not our regular army. Toxic Fin Spine launch, requesting more firepower. I'll do it myself.
Mission accomplished.
It's hardly a sport when all the enemies are human. Better safe than sorry.
Careful!
I wonder what interesting things we'll find this time. Blended, safe and sound. Fully charged and ready to go.
いざ出陣
You call for me? Maximum output.
I'm here 反抗する意志すらも叩き切ってくれるわ
Mission accomplished.
Hope we don't find trouble.
I'm in a gorgeous mood right now.
The visibility is pretty good here. Breathe. Focus. Ready to move. That person pretty fascinating.
I'm not yet satisfied.
And goodbye.
Mission accomplished.
Moving out. Everything is as we planned. To battle. Leaf, let's do our best. I'm right here.
¡Izad la bandera, marineros! ¡Haced saber a nuestros enemigos que estamos aquí!
Once the wind fills our sails, it's time to act.
Be bold, Doctor. Trust what the mind says.
I can hold here. Clear images. Is it correct? Or not quite? Whatever. Let's have a go.
Ready when the evildoers need to be called. They always will be called.
I can hold clear images. Probes functional. Corazonix, good to go.
Mission accomplished.
You are slow, like you're caught in an undertow. I will slow down and wait. Try to catch up.
They will cough up some useful information.
Watch out. The currents will pull the weak into the abyss.
Oh boy, I'm kinda nervous.
Your wounds will be rather striking.
Have I granted you the permission to run away, Nico? As you will, just a second. Then this lance will pierce your heart.
Give me 5 minutes.
As you will, watch out. The currents will pull the weak into the abyss.
Mission accomplished.
Let us reap those naive delusions and immature obsessions. They have no power to withstand. They have no path to escape. They have no way to advance. They have no way to advance. They have no path to escape. They have no power to withstand. They have no power to withstand. They have no way to advance.
Mission accomplished.
This will be a path paved with sacrifice.
No tardará mucho. Awaiting order.
This is the Destreza of Iberia.
Incapacitating them is enough.
I come from the depths of the ocean.
Entendido.
This is the Destreza of Iberia.
I come from the depths. There's no escape.
Entendido.
Your attacks are all within my calculations.
Mission accomplished.
Mission complete. Very precise and efficient command, Doctor.